Hello dear subscribers and watchers, what's up? This is me, Webs from SlideNerd here. In this video, let's continue our discussion about external storage. In the previous video, I introduced you guys to the concept of external storage and we talked about what methods we have for storing data on the external storage and which storage method we should prefer over the others. Here, we are gonna dig a little deeper into those methods, try to understand which method is appropriate for what situation, and ultimately work certain concepts out before we go ahead and make our simple example that's gonna store cache data and external storage data. So let's get started. The first thing that we need to look at is this method called get external storage directory. Now the first thing I need to tell you guys is that this method is no longer used. It was used in Android versions before 7. Current times there are only two methods that you use. One is the get external storage files dir for storing private files, and two is get external storage public directory for storing public files. So the question you ask me is, why the hell are you talking about this method? Because this method has a lot in common with the other two methods, which I'm going to discuss first so that you guys understand the working of the other two methods, and then we will talk what is specific to those other two methods. So first thing, I have this image taken from the DDMS perspective. As you guys notice, there is an MNT folder, there's an SD card folder with some stuff inside. The get external storage directory method gives you a file object that points to this place, SD card. Now this directory is not currently accessible in your app if your mobile is being connected to the computer, or if you removed your SD card, or something else has gone wrong, like your SD card is not working. So before you try to transfer data to the SD card, or say read data from the SD card, always call get external storage state. This will tell you whether your SD card is currently readable, writable. If yes for both, then only try to write data or read data. So now let's talk about this method further, try to understand some specifics about it. If your device has multiple users, then every user has his own view of the external storage, which means if there is a guest mode and if you are the host, then the data that you store as a host is not accessible to the guest, and this is for security. And then if there are multiple external storage directories, then this method gives you access to the primary external storage directory. Now what does this mean? Well, on certain high-end Android devices, you already have a primary and secondary storage inbuilt, and then you put an SD card that actually becomes tertiary storage. So in that case, if you call get external storage directory, that's gonna give you access to the secondary storage which was already there. So if you need access to the tertiary storage, then there is another version of this method that returns an array of file objects that point to all the external storage directories on your device. Now directly putting files inside MNT SD card is not recommended. Like for example, if you take a look at this gestures file over here, if every app starts putting files like this without organizing them, that's gonna put a big load on the user's head, because they're probably gonna wonder what file belongs to which app. So don't do that. Now private files, if you want to store them, then don't use this method. Use the method get external files dir that will give you a file object that takes care of putting private files on the external storage for your app, which are of course removed when the app is uninstalled. Now shared files, that is public files for your app, should be managed by this method get external storage public directory, where you have to specify a type in the bracket. Now we'll be taking a look at this type in a little more detail. Now writing to the external storage requires the write external storage permission, and reading requires the read external storage permission. Without this, your app is gonna crash if you try to read or write data. So now let's talk about the private one, which is get external files dir string type, that gets you a file object that lets you store data privately on the external storage. Now string type can be something like this: directory music, directory podcast, ringtones, alarms, notifications. So in each of these parameters supplied over here for this value string type, what you get is these folders over here. For example, if you say directory alarms, you're gonna get a reference to this alarms folder here on the SD card. If you say directory music, that's gonna give you an object or reference to this music folder here, which means when you call get external files dir and music, you're gonna get a reference directly over here, and inside this you're gonna store your files. So that is something you need to keep in mind. So at this point you have a question saying, hey, can I put something in the string type which is a personal or custom argument? Well, let's find an answer to that. So get external files dir returns files that are not visible to the other applications or user as media. These files are deleted when the app is uninstalled. Now, like I mentioned earlier, if you put a custom type over here, let's try to find out what happens. If I say file path is get external files dir my app, it's gonna actually give you a folder here called my app, inside which all your private files are gonna be stored, which means either specify a predefined type over here and that will point to one of these folders, or specify a custom string over here that's gonna give you a custom folder here. And that is exactly how the get external files dir works. But only one thing to remember is no matter what value give over here, that's gonna be private to your app, which is gonna be removed when the app is uninstalled. Now let's take a look at the other method, which is get external storage public directory. Now this is purely for the purpose of storing public files. So in this case, when you say get external storage public directory of string type, it's gonna directly give you access to one of these folders. Like for example, you could say music directory underscore music over here, and that's gonna give you access to this music folder, inside which you can store the music files downloaded or generated by your app. Now you should be careful that you do not erase these files once your app is uninstalled, because the main idea behind get external storage public directory is that you give the user some form of public data that will exist even after your app is uninstalled. So other than that, most other things that you guys notice over here is very common with what we already discussed for get external files dir, and that is the reason why we discussed that method in the first place, because there we wanted to talk about the common properties of both the methods, and then we discussed those methods in detail so that you guys can see the individual properties of both the methods. Now, since we have covered everything as far as these methods and how they work is concerned, we are gonna take up a sweet little example that's gonna work out both cache storage and external storage starting with the next video. In the meantime, if you guys do like what you saw, please like this video, share this video, let us know your thoughts in the comment boxes below, subscribe to our channel, and we'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.